Hello, everyone, and welcome to the program Business Point on Global Television. I am Samuel Odi. Many thanks for joining on to this edition of the program. Today, we'll be looking at global economic surge. We'll be just paying attention on identifying the key drivers, rather, of inflation. So, inflation has been the serious and a major issue globally, given the fact that since COVID-19 struck the entire universe, the world economy itself has been struggling to be able to get back on its feet. Not just Nigeria suffering inflation, other European countries as well suffering inflation. But we'll have conversation about the inflation rate currently and prices going up in the United Kingdom, and also we'll have conversation about the fact that Nigeria and the United Kingdom have a bilateral relationship, and you all can agree with me that we have tons of Nigerians schooling and living in the UK. How have all of this affected? So let me bring you up to speed. Prices of items are just going high rapidly in the United Kingdom. Prices in the UK went up by 2.3% in the 12th month of October, which means inflation is back above the Bank of England's target. The bank puts interest rates up and down to try to keep inflation at 2%. In November, it cut rates for the second term in 2024, taking them to 4.75%. The main inflation measures is called the Consumer Price Index. External CPI rose, which is the Consumer Price Index, rose by 2.3% the year to October 2024, up from 1.7% in the 12th month of September. The October figure is the highest rate for the sixth month. This was largely as a result of the increase of gas, electricity prices after energy cap went up on the 1st of October. The September CPI figure of 1.7% decided how much many benefits payments will go up come April 2025. So if you look at the trajectory now, currently the inflation in the United Kingdom is about 2.3% high. Consumer Price Index is also on the rise. So now, the government, just like what is happening currently in Nigeria, the CBN governor, Yemi Cardoso, made mention of the fact that the monetary and the fiscal policy is going to be tightened so as to help curb out inflation. The same measures as well is being taken in the United Kingdom, tightening the monetary and fiscal policies. Now, the brain behind all of these fiscal policies and monetary policies being tightened is because of the fact that they want the masses, that's both here in Nigeria and in the UK, not to overspend, in the sense that they want people to save more. When you save more, it's going to help curb out the inflation. That is what the Bank of England and also the Central Bank of Nigeria are saying at this point. So a lot of business analysts, economics have argued differently and saying tightening the monetary and the fiscal policy isn't even the answer to curbing on inflation. They said massive production is the answer of curbing inflation. They're coming back home here in Nigeria. There've been, series of, we could remember when the redesigning of the Naira note happened, there was cashless policy and Nigerians weren't able to access cash. Now, it seems it's coming back again in the sense that there's cash scarcity. POS charges are like surging high and Nigerians are complaining. And then Nigerians also cited the point that this always happens during the festive period where a whole lot of physical cash transactions tend to occur, and now bank networks on the other hand having issues. So with all of this trajectory now is literally affecting businesses, is affecting the economy, and this is not just happening in Nigeria, but it's also happening in around the globe. The UK has been suffering its own inflation based on energy and electricity prices going up, and the Russia and Ukraine war going on is also affecting UK as well as also affecting Nigeria. And then as of yesterday, Kenya celebrated its 60th anniversary, independence rather, and again they recorded a lesser VAT generation from the month of October, which is rather November, which is at 1.1%. So that was what was recorded. So we'll be looking at all of those. We'll be looking at the key drivers of inflation globally, and we'll just see how we would be able to mitigate all of these as to get into the new year 2025 with higher momentum, and then try to have a global economy being stable. We'll be going on a quick break, and then when I return back, we'll be introducing my guests who would help us understand most of these talking points. Do stay with us. We'll be right back. Many thanks for staying with us. If you're just joining, this is Business Point on Global Television. So this is time for us to extract these major talking points that was aforementioned before we went on the break. I have my guest who is joining me virtually from Scotland, who he is an economist, and I want to make welcome to Mohammed Bello. Good morning, Mohammed Bello. Thank you so much for joining on today's edition of Business Point.
Yeah, good morning, sir. Thank you for having me this morning.
Yes, so it's great. Like, it's winter now. I'm certain it's really, really cold. Though a few persons are freezing here in Nigeria because we're experiencing a little bit. So how's the weather over there?
Yeah, very cold, and it's snowing in some part of the country. Yeah.
Okay, so now let's get right to it. Inflation, it's ravaging the entire universe as we speak right now. So how has it been? Looking at the UK inflation rate currently at 2.3%, how is that affecting Nigerians in the diaspora, students and Nigerians living there? How is everything going with the prices of things literally, skyrocketing?
Thank you so much for that interesting question. And to take a look at it closely, the inflation rate now in the UK is around 2.3%, which is slightly above the Bank of England inflation target. They have an inflation target of 2.0%, and the most significant factors contributing to this inflation is food, energy prices, and also other goods, for example, as most significant contributors. So if you talk about how it is affecting Nigerians and other businesses in the UK, you talk about issues like increasing the mortgage rent, and also the affordability of electricity bills, for instance, and talk about gas and food prices also. So households are finding it very difficult now to meet up with this increasing cost in energy prices. For instance, energy prices contribute the largest share when it comes to inflation in the UK. Then talk about food prices also. So this implies that people are battling, both the Brits and the Nigerians in the UK are battling with increasing cost of living. The purchasing power is being eroded with the inflation, and this kind of sees a kind of financial strain on them, and one way or the other it has a way of affecting the Nigerians in Nigeria also. For instance, for those that depend on the family here in the UK to remittances, so they see a kind of decline in these remittances, because as you are battling with your cost of living here, somebody might be expecting something over there in Nigeria, so you have to settle your bills here first before you think of settling somebody somewhere else. So these are some of the dynamics currently, and businesses are also feeling kind of the heat. And I come just in is about 2.4%. So you can see that the expectation is that in the future inflation will also likely increase, and there will be a much pressure on households in order to meet their budgets, in order to meet with their expenditures, in order to meet with their expenses on food and other energy prices and other bills also.
Okay, looking at those angles now, we've heard almost like the same thing that is happening in Nigeria now, though our own inflation rate is way, way higher than that of the UK. But it's seeming like the Bank of England and the Central Bank of Nigeria are almost doing the same thing, in the sense that right here at home, fiscal policies are being tightened, monetary policies is being tightened. Now, the CBN Governor, Mr. Yemi Cardoso, says in his defense that the main aim of tightening the monetary policies is to help curb out inflation. Now, the Bank of England, on the other hand, are also saying the same thing. Tightening the monetary policies is helping curb out inflation. Do you think this is the way, as an economist, do you think tightening these fiscal and monetary policies are actually the way forward to help curb out inflation? Do you think that's the fastest route to curb out inflation?
Yes, effectively, I think the monetary policy is kind of one of the fastest ways. If you look at the transmission mechanism,
Production.
Yeah, the monetary policy is like one of the fastest ways. If you look at it from the transmission mechanism channel, it's kind of cooling inflation than any other factor that you may think of. But before we even talk of making a comparison, we have to look at distinct economic characteristics of each country. For instance, we are talking about the UK and Nigeria. So the inflation is the characteristics of inflation in the UK and Nigeria. It's a little bit quite contrasting. It's not even something that is similar. Nigerian inflation is more about structural kind of inflation, and over the years, since Cardoso came on board, they have been increasing the MPR, but then how effective has the MPR been? I don't think there was a time the inflation has cooled down, except for some 3 to 2 months ago when it cooled down, and even that's up then. The debate was that it was not, as a result of the monetary policy, but rather because of the increase in the harvest, because there was kind of increased harvest during that period, and the supply basically has exceeded the demand, so definitely the prices were coming down. So, but when we talk about the UK, for instance, now, the Bank of England response to inflation is to either tighten the monetary policy or relax the monetary policy, depending on the inflation that occurs. So they expect, as we anticipate now in the next coming weeks, we anticipate that the Bank of England will cut the monetary interest rate further in order to cool down the inflation to maybe the 2.0 target or even below. So but now is not what we are seeing in Nigeria. Inflation has been increasing, and every day the central bank has been increasing the monetary policy, increasing it constantly, and we anticipate that as we go into the new year, maybe they will rethink the approach and see that the increase in the monetary policy rate has been less effective, and it has been counterproductive to some extent if you look at it from the angle of businesses suffering and access to finance and all.
In the UK, the consumer price index is, as of September, as you almost rightly mentioned, was at 1.7 and then 1.7%. So now, what is the major force that is driving inflation currently now in the UK?
As I mentioned earlier, the major force that is driving the inflation is increasing the food prices. Food prices is like one of the food and other goods are like one of the components of inflation here, and energy prices also are one of the significant components. So these two are one of the key drivers of the inflation. When we talk about the energy price, we're talking about the petroleum energy prices and energy prices with electricity, gas, and some other component of energy. So these are like the changes in the price of these things are the ones that are pushing the inflation forward.
Okay, do you think the current inflation going on in the UK now, looking at the bilateral relationship between Nigeria and the United Kingdom, do you think that is playing a negative impact on Nigerian economy? And do you think that's one of the reasons why Nigerian inflation rate keeps getting increased? Though you rightly mentioned, since the chairman of the Monetary Committee, Yemi Cardoso, came on board, they've met 6 times this year, and for that 6 consecutive times that they met, they kept increasing the monetary policy. Looking at the bilateral relationship between the United Kingdom and Nigeria, do you think the current inflation rate in the UK is also playing a role in the inflation Nigerians are facing?
Well, I think to answer that question, I would say it has less role to play.
Okay.
Because if you talk up how UK inflation will impact Nigeria, you have to look at it from the import angle. How much import are we importing from the UK first before even? Because if inflation is high in the UK, definitely if we're importing a lot of goods from the UK, we're importing them at higher prices. So coming back to Nigeria, we'll definitely be selling at higher prices, which automatically means inflation, right? So, but how much is our import? I don't think the import is that significant to even drive the inflation. And if you look at the goods that are being imported, are not goods that are being used basically, let me say, daily by household and all. So the relationship is quite a relationship, but the relationship is not that significant in my own understanding.
Okay, Kenya yesterday celebrated their 60th anniversary, and they recorded, that was in the month of November, they recorded a decline in their VAT generation, which was around 1.1%. So, and looking at Nigeria now and our tax policies, we've been able, from reports by the MBS, says that Nigeria were able to gather around 5.87 trillion from VAT generation. So looking at those angles now, and then sharing formulas is something we're also going to talk about, hopefully when time permits. How do you think the Kenyan economy is doing for the past 60 years, looking at the trajectory?
Yeah, the Kenyan economy, I think they are on a very good trajectory. Growth is not without challenges, as economists always say. So, but we have this kind of blueprint, I think the 2023 blueprint of the economy. Most of the component of it has been realized, as I read from one of the reports, and now the Vision 2030 economic report, they kind of aspire Kenya to be a kind of industrialized middle-income country that is providing high quality of life in 2030. So it's this kind of blueprints are what makes the economy to kind of be attractive, because they kind of detail the expectations, because by 2030 this is what they're aspiring to be. And if you talk about how far they have come towards achieving this goal, the cost of living in Kenya is, as I already one of the report, has been the lowest in the last 17 years. So, and more than 200,000 jobs have been created also through affordable jobs. When we talk about industrial, trade relation, there is this special economic and export processing zone, which has attracted almost 80 companies in the past 2 years. And this also has generated a lot of jobs in the country. So you can see these are some of the driving forces that will drive the economy, and the blueprints, the economic blueprint will definitely be achieved. However, there are some challenges that will also emerge as time goes on. One is the revenue that you just mentioned. So they recorded a kind of decline in the revenue to taxation, and this will serve as a kind of challenge to them toward achieving the economic blueprint. But then, as time goes on, I think there are some policies that they will still put in place to see that these revenues are being maximized and the target is being achieved.
Okay, obviously countries set things aside for targets being achieved. Looking at curbing out inflation in Nigeria now, do you think with this monetary policies and then the interest rate and then the new tax reform policies that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has sent rather to the State House for consideration, which has passed its second reading, do you think with those tax reforms, laws that is being implemented, that is hopefully going to be implemented, do you think it's going to help with Nigerian current inflation measures?
Yeah, I think these are two different things, tax reform and then inflation measures, for instance, what the government are doing. So I'm trying to understand how the government is like trying to bring tax reform at this time of the economy when a lot of people are not even meeting up with their expenditures, meeting up with their cost of living, because the cost of living in Nigeria now is something else. Inflation has worsened everything. So if you talk about the measures that the government are taking, what measures are they taking? The measures that the government have been taking since this inflation crisis started is just to increase the interest rate, and that thing has not been effective. So I think the best thing, tax reform is a very good reform. Even the tax base in Nigeria, we have a very large tax base and it has not been maximized. So definitely if we are going to reform this tax policy and maximize our tax revenue, we are going to witness a kind of increase in revenue from taxes, and if utilized effectively will drive economic growth. But then we have to stabilize the economy first, see that things are in good shape. If things are in good shape, people will be willing to pay these taxes and without even caring how much they are paying taxes. But now somebody is already backing with increased hardship, increased cost of living, and we are talking about tax. So that's in my understanding, I think that's one of the reasons why people are moving very aggressively towards the reform. Like we don't want it, all this kind of thought and also we have to stabilize the economy first. We have to look at our inflation measures, what we are doing, and see if we need to rethink the strategies to see how we can stabilize the economy for some of this policy and some of this reform to effectively take place.
All right. Mohammed Bello, thank you so much for taking our time to join us on today's edition of Business Points, and I would say cover up properly so you don't catch cold. This is how much time will permit us to take on today's edition of Business Points.
Thank you so much for having me.
My name is Samuel Odi. I'll see you again as we talk more business. Bye for now.